Welcome to another project here on Build in Wisconsin. I'm Stuart Keith, and on today's show, we'll be learning about solutions for water backing up in your basement. So let's get started with Bill Graffin from MMSD. Well, Bill, on several occasions, we've discussed the challenges MMSD faces with unwanted water entering the system and how it really costs us all in the community. So on today's show, let's focus in on broken laterals and what can be done to repair the problem.
Yeah, everybody owns a lateral. If you own a house, you own a lateral. Any water you use in your house is going to go to your lateral, out the front yard, out to the street, where it's going to connect to the city sewer system. The city sewer system then runs to the MMSD regional sewers deeper in the ground, and that takes it all to one of two treatment plants for the region. MMSD serves 28 communities, and all of the communities that we serve own and operate their own sewer systems. It's about 3,000 miles of sewer pipe. And the lateral that we talked about, there's another 3,000 miles of those pipes. So it's a tremendous amount of sewer pipe. And any cracks in those pipes allow excess water to get into the sanitary sewer system, water that shouldn't be there. And it's water we shouldn't have to pay to clean because we all end up paying for it. But it also overburdens the sanitary sewer system, can lead to basement backups and sewer overflows.
So when it rains, the water goes down through the ground, or snow melt, or however, hits that broken lateral, and that much actually can enter the system?
Tremendous amount of excess water. Matter of fact, just on one lateral alone, you can have 50 gallons a minute of excess water leaking into the sewer system. So you're gonna have a pipe typically come out in the middle of the house, and it's gonna come out to the sewer in the street. This is typically an 8-inch sewer on most communities.
Sure.
And if it's laid at a regular pitch, it can handle about 350 gallons per minute, that 8-inch sewer. Well, if you have a broken lateral, just one can contribute 50 gallons a minute of excess water into that pipe. So if you do the math, if you have dozens of homes hooked up to that pipe out in the street, and you have 50 gallons extra coming in here, 50 gallons extra coming in from over there, you're going to end up filling up that pipe. The pipe can't take the water away fast enough. The water then starts backing up in the system and into people's homes, and that's what we're trying to prevent.
Well, think about that. I mean, if say you take just 7 homes on a city block that have a cracked lateral, that could potentially add up to over 350 gallons a minute right there.
Yeah, it's water that can end up causing problems and headaches for you and your neighbors from basement backups, from allowing too much extra water into the sanitary sewer system.
Okay, so these laterals, who actually owns the lateral from the house out to the sewer main?
The homeowner. If you own a house, you own a lateral. And unfortunately, it's up to the homeowner to fix that problem. No different than your roof or your driveway. It's up to you to fix that pipe that you own. We're all connected, and everybody that owns a lateral, you're part of the sanitary sewer system. And no matter how many improvements we do at the regional level or the communities do on their level, we can still have a massive problem just from the pipes that haven't had a lot of attention in decades because they're out of sight, out of mind. People don't think about it until there's a problem. We're noticing it when you get a heavy rain or the ground saturates. There's just a tremendous amount of excess water getting into the sanitary sewer system that doesn't need to be there and leads to headaches for people.
So that tells you at MMSD, and really tells all of us, that it really is a big problem. I mean, are there any estimates of how many or what percentage of the homes out there actually have faulty laterals?
You know, we've been doing inspections with the communities for the last couple of years, and what we're seeing is, you know, typically about 50% of the laterals have problems. In some cases, it can be as high as 70 and 80%.
And so as a homeowner, it's my responsibility to maintain the lateral. How do I know if mine's one of the ones that's contributing to the problem?
It takes some work, and you really need a camera. You really need the ground to be saturated. There's some testing they can do involving flooding the storm sewers or the ground, and they'll put a green dye in there, and then you'll be able to see with a TV camera going through the lateral that the water is leaking in and it's green. You know you have a problem.
Sure. But you guys have spent millions of dollars in infrastructure to handle excess water, yet it's still not enough. And the ultimate solution is to fix all these failing laterals.
It's a constant struggle. Pipes and infrastructure don't last forever. And so we've spent billions of dollars actually improving the MMSD system. The communities have spent millions of dollars improving their systems. But very little work has been done on the laterals, those private pipes, and that's what we really need to address. We know that it's an issue. We know there are other issues involving the private property, especially involving houses that don't have sump pumps and have their foundation drains connected directly to the lateral, which is allowing a lot more water into the system as well, above and beyond what may be coming in through cracks.
But at the end of the day, each of us homeowners out there, if we do our part, we're not only helping ourselves, but we're helping the community as a whole.
You really are, and it is expensive, and we do have a program to help out, but it's up to the communities to decide. We're getting the money to the communities, and then the communities are looking at what are their biggest trouble spots, and addressing those issues and kind of tackling it as they have funding and as the need is there, because even at $63 million that we have invested in the program currently, that's not enough to address all the laterals in the area. So it's going to be an ongoing long-term process, again, to keep after the problems. But a lot of people don't have the money, and a lot of people don't want to deal with something they can't see that's out of sight until there is a problem with their own house and you end up with water in the basement.
Sure, and what I want to do right now is I'm going to head inside for a situation just like that. Little water in the basement, they have a plugged up drain. We're going to see a solution to that problem, and then a little later in the show I'm going to catch back up with you to find out more what we can do to help MMSD and our communities as a whole solve this problem.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to our project here on Build in Wisconsin. Now let's head downstairs with Justin Castleman to see a professional solution for a plugged lateral. Hey Justin, what are you looking at?
Well, what we're doing is we're video inspecting this customer's sewer, and we're finding some roots in it.
Some roots? That looks like it's 3/4 full.
Yeah, it's actually blocked quite a bit. This sewer was actually cleaned about 2.5 years ago, and with the dry weather we had last summer, we were concerned about root infiltration and aggressive growth, and we decided to inspect it again, and we're seeing quite a lot of root growth.
So in 2.5 years, that, I assume it's a 6-inch pipe, has grown that full of roots.
That's correct. This is a 6-inch clay sewer, and this is a joint where the roots have grown through, and they'll grow through from the side and the tops, and they'll hang down just like you see.
Is this a pretty common problem in the Milwaukee area?
Yes, it is. It's a real common problem with homes basically prior to 1970, and this home goes back to about 1930, and in that era, almost all of the sanitary sewers were put in with clay tile.
And is this from a tree that's, say, right next to the existing sewer pipe?
There are a number of trees and bushes on this property. Ironically, we've been on jobs where there's one tree on the property and it's on the far side of the home, and those roots will grow underneath that basement to get to that sanitary sewer.
Boy, isn't Mother Nature wonderful? I mean, a tree will search out the water and it can go that distance, and once it finds just the smallest crack, it can work its way in.
That's correct. It's looking for that water and it's looking for the nutrients, and they will go deep to seek that out.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, obviously this is still flowing. I can see the water flowing through there, so if I'm a homeowner, I might not even know that I have a problem out there. Let's take the situation where I would look down in my basement and it's backing up. What as a homeowner should I do? Because I'm sure you as a professional plumber get these calls.
We do. The first thing we ask the customer when they call, when it's backing up, is it completely stopped up or is it slowly draining away? They had to have it cleaned before, how often? Then we ask how old the house is. Sometimes the customer will indicate that they've lived there for decades and it's never been a problem before. It's the first time it's ever happened. In those scenarios, to make sure that it's not a problem, say, in the municipal side of the system, we'll ask them to talk to their neighbors and see if their sewers are backing up. And if they are, then we know it's probably the municipal system is surcharging, but that's pretty rare. In most cases, it's going to be the customer's lateral serving their home.
Okay, so if it is the customer's lateral, you come out, can you stick the camera down there, or do you have to clean it out before you can even inspect it?
If it's completely stopped up, we don't have a choice. We have to clean it first, and after we clean it, we inspect it, and if we need to clean it an additional time, we'll do that as well. If the drain is slowly draining away, we'll wait for it to drain down, and then we'll inspect it to kind of see what we're dealing with. We'd really rather know before we go in with equipment just kind of what the situation is. And in this case, we can see that this is a partial stoppage and it's a root problem.
To me, this screams volume for preventative maintenance. I mean, if I'm a homeowner in the area, I want to send a camera down there once every couple of years just to see if this is happening. But you make it sound relatively easy. I'm going to go in there, I'm going to clean out the tree roots, and it's done. But I know it takes a lot of time to do it correctly. You have to be an experienced professional so you don't do any more damage to the pipe underground. But almost more importantly, you have to have the right equipment. Beginning with this, it looks to be a very expensive, not only camera, but DVD recorder as well.
That's correct. The camera is really critical because what it does is it allows us to prove what's wrong and prove that we've cleaned it properly. Before the cameras came out 20 years ago, we were taking really an educated guess. We would step the sewer off or measure it off, and we'd run that sewer the distance we thought we had to run. And now we're realizing that as we run our cameras out there, we're marking off footages, and we're realizing a lot of times we were wrong. So it is critical that we prove that that sewer is clean with this camera.
Yeah, just from a homeowner standpoint, I love to see that. Seeing is believing. I also see this as a recorder. Probably important to not only be a camera, but be able to record it onto a DVD as well?
That's correct. This is a DVD burner in it, and what we'll do is we will record as we're doing our inspection, the whole process, and when the job's all done, we'll burn a copy for the customer.
Yeah, the ultimate in peace of mind, that's for sure. Okay, so you want to get a trained professional, very experienced, that has the right equipment, starting with the camera. What are the other pieces of equipment that make your job easier?
Well, let me show you the machine and some of the cutters that we're going to use. Here's two very common cutters. This happens to be a 4-inch cone bit, and this cutter works very well, but only in the right size pipe. And we have a piece of 4-inch here, and when that cutter spins around inside that pipe, it does a pretty good job of cleaning the full diameter of that pipe.
But these aren't 4-inch pipes that are running out to the street.
That's correct. We happen to know that this is 6-inch clay, so we need a different piece of equipment in order to clean this properly. And this happens to be a 6-inch expanding head. It goes down to 4-inch because we have a 4-inch clean out, but then the sewer opens up to 6-inch.
Oh, and it's spring-loaded in there, I see.
So it'll go into that 4-inch pipe, and it'll clean that 4-inch just fine, but then when we reach that 6-inch, it springs open. And as it spins, we're able to fully clean the inside diameter of that pipe.
Oh boy, is that ever nice. And as a consumer, I guess when I'm shopping around looking for a professional to clean out my drain, I should ask if they have a 6-inch cutting tool, correct?
That's correct. When you're calling around asking for contractors to do this process for you, you want to make sure that they have a camera so that they can prove that it's clean. You want to make sure that they have the right equipment. So if you suspect you have 6-inch pipe, you can't clean 6-inch pipe out with a 4-inch cutter. It just doesn't work.
After all, you take that 4-inch cutter and stick it in here. Look at that. That's really all that you're getting. It's just the bottom of it. And the roots, as you just mentioned, grow from the top down, so it's really just a stopgap measure for maybe 6 months that it might work, if that.
Cleaning through 6-inch with a 4-inch cutter, all it really does is get the bottom 2/3 of the pipe. It'll push away things that have built up on the roots, but it doesn't actually remove the roots.
Okay, what are these cutting devices attached to?
What we have is a cable, and these are 15-foot sections of what they call 1.25-inch cable. The cable goes through the machine, the cutter goes on it, and we start feeding it out. And this machine we feed by hand.
And that looks like it's relatively old.
Well, this is one of the original style drain cleaning machines that Rigid came out with. Today they have a lot of drum machines, but this machine, what it does is it allows us to really feel what's going on. I can feel joints. If I bite into a joint, I can actually sit on that joint and clean extra amount of time if necessary until it feels proper. And as we're going out, we can feel everything as we're going with the unit.
That's the voice of an experienced professional. So you're actually, I see you have the gloves on, you're feeding it by hand, and just your experience tells you what you're hitting, what you're cutting through as you're going, rather than just automatically, hey, send it down there and assume that the machine itself is going to know what to do.
That's correct. So as we're going out, the machine is spinning it, we're feeding in by hand. As we're feeling things happening, we continue to clean as necessary, and then as we're done, or when we think we've reached the distance of the sewer, we will actually start pulling back, and as we're pulling back, we're cleaning also. So we really clean it twice, out and back.
And at the end of it, you get to send the camera back down through to prove that it's a thorough job and the homeowner won't have to worry. Can we get out of your way and follow along the process?
That sounds great.
Well, Justin, by the looks of it, that pipe is remarkably clean. Just what you expected?
Yes, it is. We're pleased with the results. It doesn't always come out this way. Sometimes we have to run this sewer an additional time to make sure we get it into the condition that we want it.
Well, you know what I'm taking out of this is, as a homeowner with a lateral that I own going out to the main, it's my responsibility to maintain it, keep it clean. I'm going to hire a contractor like you that has the right equipment. You've invested, it looks like, thousands of dollars into this equipment, and the proof is in performance. I mean, you were able to show me what the problem was, and then afterwards, what great peace of mind. I know it's been cleaned properly.
The equipment is definitely paramount. I mean, the camera is approximately $11,000 with the locator. It's an expensive investment, but it is a must. It really is. The sewer machine, you know, there's an additional $3,000 to $4,000 very easily. So just this process, you know, we'll invest $15,000 in equipment.
Sure, and then not only that, but as I'm looking here, this is almost out to the main. It almost looks like the pipe's broken there.
Yeah, we've uncovered there's a break here, and you can see it's on the bottom of the pipe because the water is flowing on the bottom. It's what we call the pipe invert. And you can see there's a broken section running from of the bottom third of the pipe, and it's probably 6-8 inches in width.
Pretty common to run into this?
It does happen more often than we'd like to see, but with the older homes with this size material and this type material, the clay, we see an awful lot of shifting, we see an awful lot of cracks, we see an awful lot of broken sections and pieces missing. And
you know, earlier in the show I was talking to Bill Graffin from MMSD, and this is a huge problem in the Milwaukee area because of the infiltration. When you have, you know, storm water runoff, seasonal moisture, it leads to infiltration of that water that really floods the system.
That's correct. Any amount of groundwater that starts coming up, like in the spring or when we have heavy rainfall, that groundwater is going to find the path of least resistance. It's going to leak into this joint and multiple joints and just flow right down the sewer.
And it's really compounded by the fact that there are a lot of older homes here. You're saying that they have these problems, and if everybody starts throwing in 30, 40, 50, 100 gallons of rainwater, it doesn't take long to plug up a 6 or 8 inch water line.
It adds up very quickly, and that's what will overwhelm the system.
Okay, so if this were my house, how are you going to broach the subject with me? What other equipment are you going to be using?
Well, we've made a copy of the sewer for the customer. We burned a DVD. We'll show them the video, we'll show them the break, and we'll locate it outside for them, let them know where it's at.
How are you able to locate it?
Well, we have special equipment that's mated with the camera that allows us to locate where in the yard and what depth it is.
Oh, so it's not very invasive. You can just go out there and without digging up, you'll know exactly.
That's correct.
And the depth as well?
That's correct. Based on the location, we'll make recommendations on either some type of a point repair or possibly relining into the sewer for the customer.
Well, it's great that there are solutions out there, and by taking the next step and fixing it properly, you're not only helping yourself, but you're helping all of us in the community.
That's correct. It's nice to know that this customer wants to do something about this and is concerned about the issues that this sewer is going to cause.
Well, Justin, it's great seeing the solution to the problem. Thanks for letting us follow along the process.
Thank you, Stu. It's been my pleasure.
Very fortunate in America to have great infrastructure and great plumbing systems, but every once in a while your plumbing system will have a problem. You get a plugged drain, you may have to replace a garbage disposal, you may have to replace a fixture or an appliance. You got to be prepared for those things, even though for the most part we take them for granted. And one of the best things to do if you're a homeowner and you have plumbing in your home, which we all do, you need to think about the fact that someday there's going to be something wrong with it because it's mechanical, and we do things to our plumbing systems that cause them to fail eventually. So one of the things you can do is, you know, get to know a plumber before you have an emergency. There's nothing worse than Thanksgiving dinner and your drain's plugged, your toilet doesn't work, and you have an emergency and you don't know who to call. One thing to do is you can call ahead of time. Call some contractors, call a few of them, ask them, how long have you been in business? Are you licensed? How many plumbers do you have? What kind of equipment do you have? Have you done this kind of work? Do you work in my municipality? Those are all important things to understand. If you live in a small town or a big city, who's the most reliable and experienced plumber in your area to do the work that can best serve your needs and understands the permitting and the city process and whatever may be involved in getting that permit and getting the work done timely, efficiently, and most cost effective.
Well, Bill, throughout today's show, we've learned an awful lot about laterals, how we as homeowners own the lateral from our house out to somewhere near the street, if not all the way to the main.
Yeah, it varies by community. Some communities you own it all the way up to the tree lawn. Some you own it all the way up to the street where it connects to the city sewer system.
Yeah, check with your community. Good
Absolutely,
idea.
yeah.
Okay, let's take the situation. I have water coming up through my basement floor drain. I'm in a panic. Tendency might be to call MMSD, start pointing the finger, but really, what is your advice to a homeowner in that situation?
And we get that a lot. But when you have water in your basement, a couple different ways to approach this. If it's raining out, you should call the community that you live in because they want to know first. They want to send a crew out to inspect the sewer in the street. If their sewer is flowing freely and there's no blockages, that means that you typically have a problem with your lateral. If it's dry out and you have water backing up in your basement, again, you still want to call your community to make sure there's no blockage out in the street in the city sewer. But 9 times out of 10, when it's dry out and you're having a problem, that means that your lateral is plugged and the water you used in the house that morning or for lunch or whatever can't get out of the lateral and it's backing up to the lowest point, which is the floor drain in your basement.
Sure, and probably, as Justin said, good idea, check with your neighbors too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and even when it is raining out, if you have water in your basement and your neighbors are not having a problem, then it's typically a problem with your lateral. If all your neighbors are having a problem and you are, that's typically a sign that there's something going on with the sewers out in the street or the MMSD system.
Do you ever recommend homeowners do a regular inspection?
It's really up to the homeowner, but if you have to call Roto-Rooter type company or a plumber to have tree roots cleaned out every other year, yeah, you should really have it inspected occasionally and make sure you do it with a camera. My house, I'm getting the camera. I want to see what the problem is and I want to see that it was done properly and cleaned out all the way out to the street.
Well, I thought it was really awesome today seeing Justin do the visual inspection. What they discovered here was not only did he do a great job at solving the problem and cleaning out the tree roots, but he found that it was broken, as you and I discussed, where it connects out at the sewer main.
Yeah, and that's common in the inspections we've been doing. The connection between the lateral and the community sewer, that's where you get a lot of leakage from settling or for whatever reason, but that can happen and it needs to be fixed.
Okay, I want to be a prudent homeowner. I want to help out not only myself but the community. I want to solve this problem. What are the solutions to a cracked or broken lateral?
There are a number of solutions. There are liners, which are kind of like big socks that they put in with a compound on the outside, and then they pump hot water or hot air in, and it'll cure in place, and it'll hopefully give you another 50 years of service life on your lateral and seal up all those cracks and any other problems. And there are other different techniques. You should consult with a number of different professionals before you commit to any single one to do a lot of research and find out what's good and what's bad about each technique before you commit to one.
Okay, well, it's been great having you on today's show, and I guess in closing, do you have any advice for us homeowners out there on what not to stick down a drain that might ultimately lead to a problem?
Yeah, absolutely. You use fats, oils, and grease. They call it fog. And if you're using cooking oil, pour it down the drain. Try to wipe out as much as you can from the pan and put that in the garbage, or pour it into a container and then pour that into the garbage, or seal it and put it in the garbage. But those things can really lead to very expensive problems down the road.
Yeah, and you know, a plumber told me one time, he said one of the worst they run into is pastas. They tend to swell up and actually plug up. They coagulate right in there and plug it up, and it's very difficult to remove without actually cutting the pipe out.
Yeah, and think about all those tree roots that you saw. And if you get just a little bit of fat and oil and grease accumulating on those over and over and over, and eventually it just ends up sealing up, and you end up with water that you use for the shower that morning, can't get out of the lateral. Again, it's coming up through the floor drain in your basement. No one wants to wake up that way, and no one wants to be called at lunch, we have a problem at home. So
Sure, exactly.
Just avoid it and put it in the garbage.
Well, it all makes sense to me. I really appreciate you coming on today's show. It's been enjoyable learning more about the problem, but even better yet, the solutions that we can all do to help us and our communities thrive.
Thanks for helping, Stu. It's been my pleasure.
The preceding program was sponsored by the Building Wisconsin Television Network.